mistake. The mistake is making the same mistake over and over again.
You are responsible for the outcomes in your life. Not your parents' fault. No, it's not the president's fault that you aren't where you're supposed to be. That's on you. You're giving yourself an out, giving yourself an excuse not to do the thing you know that you need to do. So forget playing the blame game. No matter what, don't fall for it.
Do not play the blame game. Don't play it. It's rigged.
Statistics and facts can be true and misleading at the same time. Dig deeper.
Look, it's actually pretty simple. Either you plan the day or the day plans you.
You got to understand what you feel versus what's real.
It's real simple. Make a commitment, make a promise, and then keep it.
Pick the pain of speaking your mind or the pain of staying silent when you know you shouldn't. I got news for you. It's not going to get any easier. Nobody said opportunities were going to be easy, and nobody said they were going to be right in front of your face, and nobody said that it's fair.
You know, it's a positive message sometimes when somebody looks at you and says, you're nowhere near where you should be. Your expectations should never be higher than your work ethic. You got to ask yourself, are you willing to work your ass off for a maybe? Because that's as good as you're going to get. There are no sure things. One yes must be protected over time by 1,000 no's. The first step towards success is to refuse to be captive in the environment you find yourself in. Patience without action is laziness. If you don't pay attention, it's going to cost you down the line. You got to understand the difference between the options presented to you and the options available to you. It's detrimental to focus on something you can't change. Make that adjustment and you should see some more success in your life. Get to work. All right, y'all. Cool. Look, I just wanted to jump on and let's have a quick conversation. I want to talk about tribal mentality today, a little bit of cancel culture, tribal mentality, especially with what happened with Nicki Minaj today. I think it's worth discussing. And also civil discourse. What in the world happened to people being able to disagree and still have a meaningful conversation? What happened to an individual thinking differently than you and then having an actual conversation? Now, let me just see, I got to change the title of this thing. I think I still have a testing one on here. It still says I'm testing Restream, which is not the case. I am not testing. This is real. This is not a drill. This is the real deal. So I'm just going to click edit real quick, throw that title up on there like this and click it. Bam. And we're good. Okay. A couple things real quick. If you want to join me live, right? Look, nothing's off limits. If you have a question, a comment, especially if you disagree, but just anything, like if there's a topic or something you want to talk about, something you want to ask or what have you, here's how you do it. You can jump on, I'm talking like on the screen, I'll pull you on the screen, that type of thing. Just right here. Is it on this side? Yeah, right here. johnguyden.com/talk. So just go to johnguyden.com/talk and you'll be able to connect with me live right now. What happens when you do that is it'll put you in like a green room and then I'll see you on the side here on the side panel. And then I'll pull you up and we can chat. If you have a question, you have a disagreement or whatever the case, but I just want to get a couple things off my chest and be able to speak about it in a way that, look, if you agree, great. If you disagree, that's great too. Let's actually have the conversation. Period. What's up, Win? What's up, Bo? How you guys doing? Look, this has gotten out of hand. This has gotten way out of hand. A few things, and I was just thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go live, and I hope somebody actually disagrees or has a nuanced approach to this thing. Just period, just anything. This is wild. So what happened earlier, and I really try not to watch a ton of the news, but what happened earlier? No, tea's way too hot. You can see this. No. That's a trap. I'm gonna let that cool down. That's not happening. But so what happened was there was so Nicki Minaj, music artist, she's got a ton of followers, right? Like ridiculous. I don't know exactly how many, but a ridiculous amount of followers. And she didn't even say anything bad. It wasn't even like It wasn't even that she was saying she was against COVID or this or that. Nothing like that. She said in the same Twitter thread, she was talking about how you should wear a mask, and she wanted to do her research, and she was encouraging people to kind of do what they needed to do, and understood that if you need to take the vaccine because you have to pay your bills, that's fine. But she wanted to wait and do her research, and literally the mainstream media and people that she probably would have considered friends or what have you, they just went crazy. They went crazy attacking her and the like. And I'm sitting here going, this is nuts. This is absolutely nuts. Uh, I want to talk just briefly about the idea of just cancel culture, right? Not that they're going to cancel Nicki Minaj. The idea, though, is that in today's society, if you say something that the mob, let's just say the mob, if you say something that the mob doesn't like, then the mob is going to punish you for saying that. Not the market, the mob. So what the mob does is they get really loud on social media, on Twitter and everywhere online, and then they find out. They'll put your information on the online, and they'll find out what sponsors you have or who you do business with, and they will try to take you down, try to take you out. And so people hear about this, and what do you think happens when people hear about this? Well, gosh, if I say something, if I say something like this, and we're not even talking about heinous things. We're not talking about these like, oh, it's so bad that this is this person's a scourge of society, blah blah blah. Nope, we're talking about people speaking their mind, people that are literally just kind of they have an opinion that may not be fully aligned with the popular opinion at the time or what have you. So, what do you think this does? What do you think the impact of this thing is? Well, clearly, most people, and I can tell experience from my TED Talk. If you haven't watched it, you definitely should. People literally, I've gotten dozens of messages like this. Okay, where people say, "I 100% agree with what you said. I love the message, and I want it to get out there, but I can't share it, and I can't say this." I've gotten private messages that says, please don't share this, but I could not share this publicly, but I wanted to reach out and tell you privately, this is what's going on. That's a problem. Now, first of all, I understand, right? So if you're one of those people and you're like, well, dude, first of all, let me just say, I understand why an individual would do that, right? It is costly to speak the truth. It's costly to say what is on your mind, to say what's real. Period. It's gonna cost you, and you've got to make the decision on what you're willing to pay. I get it, but that's the society that we wanna cultivate. It's that. It's ridiculous. Hey, if you have a question or a comment, don't be shy. Join me live, johnguyden.com/talk. Go to johnguyden.com/talk. You can do it from your phone too. It's real easy. So just open up your browser, go to johnguyden.com/talk, and boom, it's like one button. You put your name in. That's it. Super painless. And come say a comment or join me live. Talking about cancel culture though, right now, it's so making a good point. It says freedom of any kind is costly. It's true. It's true. Freedom of any kind is costly. It's a great point. It's like telling the truth is costly. Keeping quiet has a cost to it as well. I had a motivational video online. It was about pick your pain. And so you can pick between the pain of telling the truth or the pain of staying silent. Both of them have pain attached to them, but which one makes more sense? To have the conversation or not to have the conversation? To have the conversation, clearly. What are we thinking, that we don't want people to think anything differently than us to speak? Are you crazy? I mean, think about how we play this out. So just play it forward. Play it forward even just a one generation. Just play it forward one generation. What does that look like? A bunch of soft, just a nation of bunch of soft people who literally, if something happens and if something happens and it doesn't align with what they believe or what they think is right, they just melt. They just fall apart. Soft. They get on the computer, get real tough on the computer, want to call names and do this and do that, and want to try to dox folks and cancel folks. That don't make any sense. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I'll tell you what. I'm going to continue to, and I'm going to be doing a lot more of these, right? Where we're just like, let's talk about it. Let's actually have the discussion because I think it's worth it. And if it makes somebody uncomfortable, good, good. Last election, last election on my street, we had we had Trump flags, we had Biden flags, right? On my street, we had Trump flags and we had Biden flags. Guess what happened before, during, and after the election? Guess what happened on my street? We still waved, we still invited each other to barbecues, we still did all those things. Doesn't make any doggone sense. So another thing that doesn't make any sense to me is this tribal mentality. Now, let me say first and foremost that when I'm talking about tribal mentality, I'm talking about this this idea that you are part of a group, and since you're a part of that group, you have to think like that group. This is how we think. This is what we think. This is what we believe. This is what we do. This is what we don't do. This is who we like, and this is who we don't like. Right? Group think. It's like you unplug your brain and you just say, okay, well, what's my group? Okay, great, black or LGBTQ or women or this movement, that movement. Plug it in. Boom. It's like it's your rubric for yep, this is how I answer questions. These are my opinions. These are my thoughts. That's group think. I'm this, so whatever, or this as a right as a woman. I feel it's like as a black man or as this or as that. It's like didn't know that was a thing. So the question is, when is group think a good idea? When is group think a good idea? Let's think about this critically, right? I can think of a couple of a couple of situations where group think might be a good idea. Like if you're going to a sports game, right? And group think, it's like, well, okay, let's just say Raiders fans for a minute or Broncos fans or doesn't matter, but it's like, hey, we're Raiders fans. I'm not a Raiders fan, but just using it as an example. We're Raiders fans. It's like, okay, well, we think that this is how we feel about. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go back. I don't think it even makes sense there. Maybe on what colors you wear to the stadium so that your stadium looks like unified. That makes sense, but that's not group think. That's just kind of an action. But no, group think wouldn't even make sense in sports. Like you all have to love the coach or you all have to hate the coach. What? You all have to like this player or you all have to hate this player? That doesn't make any sense. There's no example in society where people literally think the exact same. Can anybody come up with an example of tribal mentality, of group think, when that makes sense, when it actually makes sense for you to take your cues for how to think based on the group you belong to? And by the way, we all belong to many, many groups, right? What flags can I fly? What jerseys can I wear? Gosh, well, there's father, there's former collegiate football player, there's speaker, there's this, there's that. There's all these things, tons of different things. So yeah, I'm curious. Is there anybody who can tell me the idea or tell me the situation, the specific situation whereby groupthink is a good idea? Right now, I have no clue. I have no clue. I literally I can't think. I can't think of. Can anybody else? Please, I beg you, let me know. Come on and let me know. Again, don't be shy. If you have a question or a comment, you want to come on, you want to chat, johnguyton.com/talk. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I don't think. Where's my thing back on there? I'll put that thing back on the screen. Nope, that's not the one. Tribal mentality. I don't think that there is any good reason for groupthink. Like I can't think of a scenario where groupthink is a good idea. Groupthink because you belong to this group. That's it. Maybe in like the broad sense, right? When it's like, well, okay, we're all nah. Yeah, you can use like one or two examples, but it's just one or two thoughts, and it breaks down to like human decency as opposed to because you're part of that group. Every idea that I'm thinking in my head. Every idea that I think of, it just doesn't make sense. All right, let's read a couple of these chats. How do we migrate from the here where we are? Remember the geese? Someone will always have to take the headwind and always be willing to rotate to the back. Where do I fit in? Will the flock all continue to pull in the same direction? You have to say more about that, Bo. You have to say more about that. But yeah, I mean, look, of course, somebody's got to be willing to lead, and will the flock go in the same direction? You know, depends on programming, right? Like where you get your inputs from, right? So if we're going to take this and if we're going to take this to its conclusion, it's like, where do you get your input from? Where do you decide to go left or go right or go up or go down? Say yes, say no, vote this way, vote that way. How do you make your decisions? Is it based on your feelings? Is it based on the facts? Is it based on your own personal situations, anecdotes? Is it just based on the data? Megan says cancel culture is a symptom of our mental health crisis. Our people are no longer resilient, no longer can figure out how to be civil while passionately holding opposite viewpoints. I agree. Can I get this whole comment on the screen? Almost. Not quite. Can't get the whole thing on the screen. But great point. Let's read the rest of this. Can be civil even while passionately holding opposite viewpoints. We must have the validation of everyone. Hold on. They're moving on me. Must have the validation of everyone around them, or we feel hated by the other. Yeah. 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 So what do you do about what do you do about that? It's like mental health. What was the saying? Good times create strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. Hard times create strong men. So it's a cycle, right? If you believe that, if you're following that, it's a cycle. And I think we've had good times, and we're creating. I think there's just some soft people, right? And not that they can't change. It's like being out of shape. It's like you can get back in shape. You can get back in shape, but it's going to take some working out. It's going to take a little bit of pain to get back in shape. I mean, we can do it. It's all cyclical, but I think that's the place we're in. Things are so good, so good. You have to make up. You have to invent oppression where you can't find it. You have to figure out a boogie. You have to find a boogeyman. You have to find a boogeyman and hold tight, right? Hold tight and put that. There has to be. Brings me back to that radio interview with David Webb and Areva Martin. So they were talking about his success and whether or not skin color played a factor. And David Webb goes, I've I worked hard. I've done the work, done the research to be in each industry, and I didn't see it as a color issue. I see it as a qualifications issue. And Areva says something and this is a radio interview, and Areva says something to the effect of, well, David, there's a whole thing about white privilege. I don't have time to get into it now, but there are things that you could do that you have the privilege of doing that other people don't have the privilege of doing. And he says, how do I have the privilege of white privilege? And she says, David, by virtue of you being a white male, you have white privilege. I don't have time to explain it all to you. You're going to have me back on. And she said, he said, I hate to break it to you. You should have been better prepped. I'm black. It's like, wow. think about that for a second. She took his points of basically promoting a meritocracy, right? The hard work of an individual is the main reasoning, or whatever, the strategies that they hold up, whatever. Those are the things. Took that and said, white privilege. It's like, what? What are we talking about? It's weird. That's weird. Let's look at some chats really quick. Yeah. American supporting Constitution. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean to say the geese of the group think I'm disgusted with us collectively. No pulling in the same direction. Yeah. It's what it is. It's and by the way, again, questions. If you have questions, you want to talk about something, you want to bring up a topic, you want to ask a question, you want to chat live, you want to challenge, johnguy.com/talk. Oops, sorry about that. johnguy.com/talk. So also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this whole live stream today is brought to you by my new book, Why the Race Card Has Expired: 4 Steps to Overcome Victim Mentality. If you haven't gotten your exclusive signed copy, you might want to do that. Limited. What do you call that? limited quantity. Thank you. Limited quantity. So you can go to johnguyton.com/books and get your copy, and I'll sign it for you, write you a nice note, and ship it out to you. So there's that. So all right. So what? So okay. So here, I have a serious question here, right? I have a serious question here, right? At what point, like when did the ability to have a conversation with an individual with whom you disagree, when did we lose that collectively? Is this I think we might be okay. Mm, close call. I think we're good. When did we lose that? Like what happened to where we lost that and we said, "Oh, this isn't something that we don't do." It's like, don't listen to this person because this is who they are. We're just labeling stuff that's if you have a disagreement, if I think this and you think that, we don't talk. Are you kidding me? Play that out. Where do we go from here as a society? Where do we go if we can't do that? All right, JJ says, when the execution of a certain groups is fighting to resolve certain situations or problematic issues in today or yesterday's society, this, in my opinion, is a time where groupthink may be applied. Say more about that. Hold on. We might have somebody who says, because I asked the question about when does groupthink a good idea? When execution of a certain group, you really mean like execution, like murder of a certain group, is fighting to resolve certain situations or problematic issues in today's or yesterday's society. This, in my opinion, is time where group think may be applied. Okay, I think that I'm going to say that you might be confusing um, a people coming together as a group to take a certain action. Okay, okay. You never know with chat and stuff like that. Remember, folks can always join live if they want to join on. But it's like I think taking coming together and having a specific action is one thing, right? Coming together for a common ideology, to further that, right? To come together to I mean, those all make sense. But when is it appropriate? When does it make sense for you to take your cues on how to think from a group? I can't think of one situation. What group of people are all alike? I'll wait. Are all women the same? Are all black people the same? No, of course not. But people would have you think that. Oh yeah, white people this or black people this or women this or athletes this. Isn't that what we wanted to get away from? Who's the number one minority? Who's the most minority of any minority? Period. Right? You got all these different minorities. Who's the ultimate minority? It's the individual. That's it. It's the individual. That's the ultimate minority. Period. So if you're fighting to resolve a situation, okay. So I think where you're trying to go with that, or where you're going with that, JJ, is like, when there's something going on and you want to work together to solve a problem, group think may make sense. Well, that's not group. That's not group think. It's like each individual has to come to the conclusion that they agree with a certain thing. It's kind of like voting. It's kind of like your desire to build something or create something. It is what it is, right? So, but if you're taking your cues from that group, I see a big huge problem with that. And it's not a problem like just because I don't like it. It's a problem that I think it's dangerous. It's lazy and it's dangerous. I think I'm no historian, but I think that there has been some disastrous outcomes based on groupthink in the past. When you take your cues from the collective of the group, like, oh, that's what we do. When you don't question anything, when you don't think, when you don't peel back the layers, you don't ask questions, you don't challenge anything or anyone because of their status or because of their title or because of the color of their skin. How trivial is that? What, I'm not going to challenge you because of what you look like. I'm not going to challenge you because you're a woman. I'm not going to challenge you because you're black. It's crazy. I'm not going to not do that. I'm not going to avoid doing that because of that. Doesn't make any sense. All right, Bo says, um, I'm in the middle of coaching battle. Okay. So this guy says, all right. So Bo, I'm in the middle of a coaching battle with a problematic youth player. We pour into him. Hold on. He says that thrown out there. He says we pour into him, love on him, but at what point are there no consequences at the detriment of a team? Are we establishing a benchmark where this kid who has a bad home situation becomes the focus of the coaches and teammates? Where is the accountability? Do we limit the success of other kids because he's going through a tough time? Oh, oh man, that is a really, really tough one, because when you're dealing with children, okay, so you've got a problematic youth player. I'd have to dig in more into what the problematic means, but let's just say problematic. Let's just define problematic as disruptive to the team, right? Let's be simplified and say it's disruptive to the team. So you've got a player that is disruptive to the rest of the team. What do you do from that player? And you know that player has problems at home and this and that and the other. At what point do you have to maybe kick the kid off the team or suspend the kid or what have you? I would say that's why laws and bylaws and rules and protocols and all, that's why those are so important. Because, and again, no system is going to be perfect, but you have to take your best guess with the least amount of collateral damage. Now, let me be clear and say something like, let's be clear. Let's be clear on something. I don't believe in solutions. And I got this from Thomas Sowell, so I'm not taking credit for this. But I don't believe in solutions. I believe that there are trade-offs. There was a comedian who since passed away. His name was Mitch Hedberg, and he had a joke. He said there was an apartment building, and too many people were falling off the balcony to their death, and so they made some adjustments, and now the right amount of people are falling off the balcony to their death. It's like, of course, you'd want a situation where nobody falls off the balcony or jumps off the balcony to their death. Of course, we want no one to do that, right? That's the goal, but it's not realistic unless you want to put bars on the windows or just make them so they don't open. You can do that, or just have no balcony. But if you have a balcony, you have risk. If you have people in society thinking together, you have risk. You're going to risk. I'm going to risk offending someone. Apparently, I offend people just by the title of my TED Talk. I guess that's why TED changed it. Changed it to a lame title. Or the title of my book. Or statements. There's nothing wrong with that. Are you afraid of being offended? Are you afraid of hearing something and being like, ooh, I didn't like that. I didn't like what you said. Great. This is called life. This is literally normal. Great. You didn't like what I said. Perfect. What's your next step? Say something crazy online and then go and and then don't engage? Or is it to actually reach out and have a conversation? If you'd like to, by the way, johnguyton.com/talk, and we get wrong way, but thing is reversed. But that's the way to do it. Doesn't make sense. You're just that's it. Just, nope, I don't talk to them anymore. You know how many people unfriending folks on social and not talking to people on social because of the way they think without digging in for nuance? Doesn't make any sense. All right. Megan says, we lost our ability to be civil with opposing ideas in multiple ways. Yeah. Many moral issues became political going into the 80s. Before then, most Americans generally agreed on what was right and wrong. Then the internet gave us access to so much info. The social media brought us to the village square behind a screen with a boldness from anonymity. Then the media just went off the cliff, being all opinion and no journalism. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't have said it better. I couldn't agree more. It's like before then, most Americans generally do we have no common ground? Is there no common ground? Have we lost common ground? Is that a thing? I'm not sure if that's how it works. Have we lost common ground? Is it over? That's it? Period? No more civil discourse. We're not going to agree to disagree in any way, shape, or form. Be okay to disagree with anybody. Be all right to disagree. It's okay to disagree. If it wasn't okay to disagree, well, I'm not even going to go down that road. There's so many things in our society that would be different because think about it. If you're going to subscribe to groupthink and you're not going to and you're not going to have uncomfortable conversations, then you're just going to take your cues from whoever. There used to be, the firing line and all these genuinely sincere attempts to have civil discourse, genuinely sincere attempts versus you go on media, you go on CNN, you go somewhere else, and all of a sudden people are like, all right, I'm going to I'm going to ask you a few questions, a couple gotcha questions, and that's it. I was just speaking at a youth summit. I was just speaking at a youth summit with a ton of young people, and I was talking about the race card. And I did my talk why the race card has expired, and this was just recently. And if you're interested, you can get your copy. If you haven't picked that up, make sure you go to johnguyton.com/books. But I was doing my talk there, right? And it was fantastic. It was a great event. A lot of young people there. It was really awesome. And there was a reporter from the Washington Post there at the event, and he comes up to me. He's got like two masks on. He comes up to me, he says, "Hey, so and so from the Washington Post. I want to ask a couple questions." I said, "Oh, okay, cool. No problem." He says, "All right, well, your message is about race, but there's really just all white people here. Do you ever do these talks in front of black folks?" And I said, "Absolutely." He said, "Oh, you do?" I said, "Of course." He goes, he goes, "Well, how does your message change when you speak to a black person?" I said, "It doesn't." He said, "Well, how does your message change? Like, what do you want these particular kids to get out of your talk?" I said, "Well, what do you mean these particular kids? Because these are basically all white kids. What are you going to get out of the talk?" I said, "The same exact thing as when I do it for anybody. There's no difference. I want to open their minds and help open their perspective, help shape their perspective so that they don't go through life assuming that everything bad that happens to them is somebody else's fault. And everything good that happens to them is because somebody else let them do it or gave them the ability to do it. That's not good either. None of those things are good. It's it. It's perspective. It's as simple as that. Simple as that. All right, Bo. Okay, I got a couple people waiting to talk live. Bo, your connection is bad, but all right, all right, all right. Roger, you're on.
Can you hear me, Tom?
Hello. I can hear you, pops.
Oh man, you're coming in so I can barely hear you. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm doing fantastic.
So
You
I
got
lost my feed. You gotta. Can you come back to me? I lost my feed, son.
no problem. Yep, come back to you. This thing is cool. This tool is pretty cool. It's trying to work this whole thing out like one man band, one man show. I'm gonna try to get Bo, but Bo, you got one. Your network connection is super weak, but I'm gonna try to. Nah, you're not in there, are you, Bo? Nope. Okay, no worries. If you have a good internet connection and you'd like to chat, you can you can go to johnguyton.com/talk. So, all right. So back to Washington Post guy. Uh, he says, uh, he says, so what's your message to these kids? Right. Okay. So let me catch up. So I do my talk, which if you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out. But I haven't. He goes, he goes, your message to these kids. What's the message for these kids? And at that moment, I'm like, did he listen to my talk, or did he listen to my talk, or did he just look at the title and get triggered and come up and want to talk to me? Because now I'm confused. It's like, if you listen to my talk, if you actually listened to the words that I said, why would you ask me what my message is based on the color of the, like, think about how crazy this is. Based on the color of my skin, this Washington Post reporter, is that what okay, this Washington Post reporter says, what's your message to this group? Because their skin color looks different versus another group with a different skin color. What's your message to this group? As if it's going to change. I responded, well, if you watch my talk, then you already know that this talk is applicable to everyone. It's applicable to anyone, right? There's a message to get out depending on who you are, saying no matter who you are. And the demographics of who I speak to is based on all sorts of factors like geography and the organization that I'm speaking to or whatever the case may be. I don't go to a group and say, okay, I want to talk, but I want it to be, let's do about 60% white people, 25%. Like what? This is ridiculous. I mean, the absurdity of the question and the comment, actually, the more you think about it, the more it's like, huh. And there were black people at the event. You say, oh, there's really no black people here. It's like, really no black people here? What number of people could have been there for this Washington Post reporter to say, there's an appropriate amount of black people there? Like, did you want exactly 13% of the crowd to be black? And this is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely crazy. At least to me. At least to me. So if you're just joining us, I asked a couple of questions. One question that I asked was, how does cancel culture impact society? Tribal mentality, right? So when is groupthink a good idea? Literally, is there a point in time where groupthink is a good idea? Where you take your cues on how to think about a situation based on a group, based on you being a member of a group. Like, oh no, we don't like that. Something as absurd as like, black people always vote Democrat. I haven't heard anything so silly. What do you mean? Do all black people eat the same stuff too? Do all black people have the same interests in sports and sciences and the arts and this and that? How far do you take this? How far do you take this? When is it too far? I'd say it's too far probably at the first group think. Show me any group of a significant amount of people. I'd say 150 people. I bet you couldn't find 150 people that if you asked them all of, enough questions, you're going to get different answers. That's called being a person. I had somebody come up to me. I talked about this on my last live. It's like this guy, I was having this conversation. He said, hey, you have and I forget the percentage, right? But he's like, oh yeah, you got like a 30 or 40% higher chance of going to prison than I do. I says, why? I said, well, because you're black. I said, So let me get this straight. Because I'm black, I have a higher chance of going to prison than you? That makes no sense to me whatsoever. I think where the confusion happens, and so let me just pause that, because what some people will say is, what is he talking about? Doesn't he know the stats? Doesn't he know the statistics? And then they'll bring out the statistic and they'll say, well, this percentage of, you know what? We're going to break this down. I'm going to break this argument down, and I'm curious to know if somebody thinks about it in a certain way. Well, you know what? Forget that. Here's what I want to know. I want to know how you can square this. I want to teach a little bit about the difference between causation and correlation. So you look at the statistics with blacks in prison and you say that is an injustice, right? Simply put, it's an injustice because, and I said, well, okay, give me the evidence. Let's talk about the evidence. And the evidence presented is the statistics. You'll say, well, if you look at the prison system, we're only 13% of the population, but we're X% of the prisoners. So because there's a disproportionate number of blacks in prison, that is evidence that there is a racism problem. That's it. Let me tell you what is drastically wrong with that assumption. So there's a difference between causation and correlation, right? So correlation is that. It's like there's a correlation between being a woman and being in nursing, right? So they over-index in nursing. There's not very many male nurses, right? Is it a causation? Is it like what? Like what's the reason? So when you start talking about the reason, you say, okay, is it like sexism that more women are in nursing? Like what's the reason? So when you talk about the statistic on blacks in prison, say, okay, the reason I think it's a horrible I mean, and I mean horrible. A horrible idea to simply take that statistic and use that as your evidence to say that there is a problem is because I don't want that same logic to be applied to many other things in life. Like you could say, so what if you said, well, I think, John, you're dangerous. Well, why am I dangerous? Because 50% of the murders are committed by people who look like you. Okay, so now we want to talk about nuance. Now we want to say, well, hold on, time out. Time out. I don't want you to do that. That's time out. Or I'll give you another example. What is it? 70. Don't kill me on the exact number, but something like I think it's upwards of 80% or 75 at least. Let's go with 75. 75% of the NBA, the National Basketball, the National Basketball Association, NBA, 75% black players. Hold on, time out. We're only 13% of the population, but we're 75% of the NBA. What's going on here? Is it racism? What system gave all that wealth away? Who decided that it was okay to let that be the case? Come on now, it's not fair. somebody make that make sense. Somebody make that make sense. Blacks are 13% of the population, but 75% of the NBA. Is that fair? Is there a systemic issue? Can I trot out that evidence and set that before you and say, this is my evidence that there's an issue with the NBA. There's an issue with the NBA because it's disproportionately high, disproportionate number of black players are in the NBA. And so that's not right. NFL is not quite as high, but it's multiples of the demographic. It doesn't even line up at all. I think it's probably 50, 60% black in the NBA. I mean, in the NFL. Same thing. Can I use that statistic? Can I use that data? And look, if you want to talk about it, join me live, right? There it is, johnguyton.com/talk. But it's like, can I use that data to say that okay, there's clearly a problem in the NFL, clearly a problem in the NBA. If you say, well, no, you can't, because why? Because to make it right, what will we have to do? There'd be a lot of brothers losing their jobs because you got to put some white players in there, some Asian players in there, and all that type of stuff. Starting to not make sense, right? Just taking that one stat doesn't make sense. So basketball is racist against white people, and then hockey is racist against everybody because 3% of hockey players have any color, they're of any color, right? Non-white, 3%. That's it. So what do we do? What do we do to make it right? Do I say, okay, I need some of you hockey players to go play basketball. I need some of you basketball players to play hockey. Let's just kind of shuffle this around. We need some more brothers on the ice. We need a couple of y'all go play some basketball. Does that make any sense to anybody? If it does, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you. So if we can't say that NFL and NBA and NHL statistics are enough, then you can't do it with anything else. Because if you do it with something else, what happens is, right, if you do it with something else, that's a lazy and dangerous argument. You do that with something else, then all of a sudden what happens is now you've opened up Pandora's box. All I have to do is find a statistic that'll support what I'm saying, a statistic. In fact, I told a story in my talk about an event that really happened. It was a real event. And based on those events, I concluded that breath mints reduce racism by up to 83%. I'm going to make that a t-shirt, by the way. So be on the lookout for that. But so you can't, it's a lazy and dangerous argument when you just take one statistic and say, because this is the case, that's what matters. It doesn't make sense. It's like saying, is there a sexism problem in the bomb squad? John, what do you mean by that? Well, it's like, I think less than 1% of the bomb squad are women. Less than 1%. Women are 50% of the population, a little bit more than 50% of the population, but only less than 1% of the bomb squad? Why is no one talking about that as a problem? Just think about it for a second. Why is no one talking about that as a problem? Why? Because there's other plausible explanations for this. Because there's probably not a woman watching or listening to this that wants to be on the bomb squad. They don't want to be in the bomb squad. I don't want to be in the bomb squad. In order to do that, you have to have you have to score high on the psychopathy scale. And typically men score higher on the psychopathy scale. I don't want to be in the bomb squad. Hey, thank you for everybody who does. I appreciate you, but it ain't me. So why isn't anybody talking about that as an issue? Why? Because in that example, I used that example specifically because I've never met anybody who wanted to pick it up and challenge it, right? But when you say maybe more desirable things like doctors and lawyers and things of that nature, then people start to use the stats again. But again, it is such a lazy argument because, okay, if we're going to do that, oh, by the way, if you didn't get the memo, two things. One, no, not there. Here, this link is not to watch this. This link is actually to get on here and chat with me. Like I'll pull your video up, boom, you chat. It's real quick. JohnGuyton.com/talk. So the reason it's so lazy and so dangerous because people talk about white privilege. I want to talk about that for a second. Let's talk about white privilege for a second. Who here is like, yeah, white privilege? That's definitely a thing. It's definitely a thing, right? And let me define it as just for the purposes of this discussion, because I'm a fan of defining things. So in this talk, we'll just say white privilege is that someone has a material benefit over another person solely because of the color of their skin, right? Or this is a white supremacist society and that type of thing. If that's the case, and it's really a white supremacist society, if I was white and there was like a white privilege store, I would go in and request to get my money back because they're doing a horrible job. I would have to go in there and say, you guys are doing a horrible job of keeping us on top. We aren't even close to the top as far as household income in America. Ghanaian Americans, Nigerian Americans, and several Asian groups are doing significantly better than us in household income. This is where stats get tricky. This is all of a sudden where the reason I am not a big fan of groupthink, and the reason I'm not a big fan of making blanket statements about the color of somebody's skin is because there's so much more to it than that. Let's dive in. So hold on. Black Americans, right? Just as a whole, if you're talking about skin color, that's it. Skin color, that's it. Black Americans do not do as well financially as white Americans. Period. End of story. Boom. But when you peel back the layers and you say, okay, well, let's get a little deeper than that. Nigerian Americans make a higher household income than white Americans. Higher. So does the racism skip certain, like, think about this, right? Let's just play this out. Does the racism at that point, the racist system, is there like a form that they fill out? They're like, hold on, before you interact with us, we need to figure out what kind of black you are, because our system, our racist system only works with certain types of blacks. So, and they're like, oh, okay, cool. I'm Jamaican. It's like, they're like, nah, you're good. I'm Nigerian. Okay, cool. You're good. I'm a Ghanaian. No problem. I'm just regular old American black. Oh, got it. You over here. You're yep, you got to go. You get the racism. The system, you get the system. I know nobody thinks that. So, what am I saying? I'm saying you got to think deeper than that. You have to look at other plausible explanations. You have to. Other plausible explanations. It's got to be more than just the color of your skin. Clearly, it has to be more than just the color of your skin, because so many things wouldn't be true if that was the case. It has to be more than that. Period, point blank. It's got to be more than that. So that's it. End of story. If you disagree, let me know. JohnGuyton.com/talk. Let me know. let me know. But it's crazy. Don't How are you gonna try to convince me white privilege is a thing? You're gonna convince me that somebody has a benefit over me because of the color of their skin? Please tell me what I am open. I am all ears. Tell me how someone has privilege over me solely because of the color of their skin. Nobody's ever been able to tell me a legitimate reason why. Tell me. I know plenty of white folks I'm more privileged than, significantly more privileged than. Pretty black last time I checked. Don't know what we're talking about here. So I would love to have that conversation. I'd also love to know how certain types of blacks in America are able to navigate these systems and do significantly well in America, present day, when others are not. This shouldn't even be a crazy question. This shouldn't even be a controversial question, but maybe it is. Why can some black group, like, okay, again, why can Nigerian, Ghanaian Americans, why, and then black West Indians, same thing. If you stood us next to each other, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference until we started answering questions, we started having conversations, we started telling you things, showing you that. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So it can't be off appearance. So what is it? What's the factor? If it's not on appearance, what's it on? Okay, so we've thrown out just solely skin color. We've thrown that out. Like it's just not borne out by the data. It's just not supported by the data. I'm sorry. Like even if I wanted to believe that, the data there's no data that supports it. None. None. So, okay. So if it's not that, then what is it? If it's not that, what is it? Now it gets interesting and now it can be helpful. Maybe it's culture. Maybe it's decisions. Maybe it's family structure. Maybe it's whether or not there's a father in the home. Maybe it's the importance of education. Look, I'll tell you a personal story. I remember in high school, I got a 3.3 GPA in high school, which I still think is good, right? Like I think it's good. My dad thought it was good. I thought it was good. I was I felt great about the 3.3. But I went to my friend's house who's Nigerian, and his dad was like, he was like, "Why are you doing so poorly?" And I was like, "Damn, why are you doing so poorly?" Like, I'm thinking in my head, you must not. This 3.3. That's like B's and A's and B. I mean, basically A's and B's. I'm doing great. He said, "Why are you doing so poorly?" His son, my friend, 4.85 academic GPA. 4.85 academic GPA. It was just a difference, and it was just what's the that's just one example of a difference, right? What's the difference between that black person and this black person? Well, I wasn't set out to be an engineer. I didn't. That wasn't a goal of mine. So since it wasn't a goal of mine, I wasn't taking into I wasn't studying 4 hours, 5 hours a day. It just wasn't. He was. I mean, let's see, how old? What's our years of difference? I think he was. So their youngest brother was, I think, 7 or 8, and I was in the 7th grade. We were doing the same math, the same math. And it's not because I wasn't intelligent; it's because they were extremely hardworking and intelligent. And after knowing them more, I would say extremely hardworking and disciplined. Right? I'm not sure that their brains are exponentially bigger, or they just have this innate ability to be super smart. It's like you work your tail off for that. And it's not all just about hard work. I understand there's a ton of different factors, but come on, we gotta be real about this stuff. All right. So I'm gonna close soon here. If you want to chat, I'm gonna do a lot more of these, and I'm gonna be inviting people to come on. I think I'm gonna do one with. I'm gonna invite some folks that worked with me on my documentary. Speaking of, I'm gonna play that sizzle for you so you can see. So if you don't know about what this is, the crew and I spent 2.5 years traveling the country, asking people what the biggest problem facing Black America was, and based on that, we created a documentary, The Dark Dollar. So I encourage you to go to my website and join the list because that's going to be coming out real soon. If you want to, if you ever want to come up live during one of these, it's johnguyden.com/talk. Boom, jump in. We can talk, answer your questions, that type of thing. So I'm gonna let you watch this because last time it was all messed up, but now I got fast internet. I'm connected. Everything's good. I'm gonna let you watch this. Take a look at this, and then I'll wrap us up. I got some final thoughts here.
The conversation about race in America hasn't changed for years.
Blacks and Mexicans got it hard over here.
My cousin and I grew up 30 miles away from each other, but a world apart.
This type of area, man, police just mess with you for no fucking reason. If you black, they gonna violate your rights.
So what do you think is the biggest problem facing Black America today?
Racism.
What's your opinion? Racial separation under nationhood.
My wife is Irish white,
Really?
so that'd be a little problematic. I know that racism exists. I just don't think it's Black America's biggest problem, not even close.
The census reports the highest level of poverty since 1959.
Right now, the typical white family, 20 times the net worth of the typical Black family.
The American dollar circulates in white communities for 17 days. Black communities, 6 hours. Something isn't adding up.
We have over 4,000 housing projects. It's not working.
So if we go down to a county building, what are we gonna see?
Free money.
If they go to work, they can't receive these benefits. They're going to get less for the job that they have than they would if they stayed at home.
Doesn't that seem off to you?
It's the same cycle over and over again.
Dad wasn't there, so pretty much the streets raised me. That's why I was saying if I grew up in a different area or had a different environment, maybe things would have been different.
I see that most people that are struggling in this country look like we do. And I'm just on a quest to find out why.
Goes back to our history.
My grandfather was a 15-year-old slave.
Blacks in this country have only had about 40 years to be able to accumulate wealth.
How did things get like this?
Abraham Lincoln in 1865 signed a piece of legislation to teach free slaves about money. He gets killed the next month.
Nobody's telling us about the history of who we truly are. African Americans, many of them were very wealthy.
Dr. King's assassination was, I think, an attempt to stop us from starting the Poor People's Campaign.
We have truly, in the United States, come a long way.
But we've been missing one important ingredient. $1.1 trillion. It's the amount of money that Black people spend every year in the US. If this was the GDP of a country, it'd be the 16th wealthiest nation in the world.
Pool our wealth and set up something of our own.
How do we get people to say, oh, I'm in, and start to make some real progress and leverage what I call the dark dollar?
There's some type of disconnect.
Do you think Black Americans are financially literate?
Do you hate Black people?
Why would I be doing this if I hated Black people?
I don't know.
We're talking about bettering ourselves. Why is it so difficult?
I'm asking. It's just a question.
To be broke is economic, but to be poor is a disabling frame of mind. And you must vow never, ever, ever to be poor again.
I myself don't want people that look like me to be a charity case for the rest of our lives.
If I arm you with the resources that you need at a very early age, then I don't have to subsidize you at a later point.
This is not just an issue about Black America. It's an issue about America.
We don't want no Ferrari. We want our children to have unlimited access to cash and capital.
We were a proud, successful, savvy people, and we can be that again.
I'm not gonna let no one get in the way of my opportunity.
Almost anywhere there was change, usually it was the power of the money, or as you call it, the dark dollar.
I feel like we should have adopted you or something.
I wish I would have.
Yeah, so I wonder how many individuals watch that and think, "Oh, that's got a political angle to it." Because the reality is, it doesn't have a political angle to it at all. It's looking at the same topics, the same things that people have been looking at for decades with a different perspective. That's it. With a different perspective. It's simple as that. That's it. It's really that simple. So I wrote in the comments, I was chatting with D-Rest here. They said, look, people have to be willing to have their ideas challenged. And I just want to leave you with that. Just I want you to take stock and ask your, not only just ask yourself, but ask your friends. You can be on social or what have you, but ask your friends, are you willing to have your ideas challenged? I am, and I hope that you are. But ask your friends, ask the people, especially the people that you disagree with. Ask them if they're willing to have their ideas challenged, honestly, and willing to have civil discourse. Because I don't exactly know where civil discourse has gone. I have no idea where it's gone. But no matter where it's gone, we need to make sure we get it back because it is important. It is an important part of our society. It's an important part of our country for us to have actual, meaningful conversations with individuals with whom we think differently than. How in the world can you make progress or call yourself a progressive if you're unwilling to have those conversations? It doesn't add up. Anyway. All right, guys. I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking a listen. This is new for me. I'm just getting started with these lives and stuff like that. So I'm learning, and I got a new system. This little one man band here, so I'm doing all the clicking and sliding and this and that and all that good stuff. So next time, make sure hit the website, grab a book. That'd be great. Hit the website, sign up for the documentary, the wait list to make sure you get notified when that goes live. And I think I'm going to be introducing more clips and whatnot. So that being said, you guys have a fantastic night. And for those of you who are watching the replay after this is live, reach out. I read every single comment. So, all right.